Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carl. I'm a National Solution Specialist here at OBS. We're going to kick off the webinar. The webinar today will be recorded, so if you'd like to view it again afterwards, there will be a notification after the webinar of where the recording is placed. So thank you for your time today. We're going to go and have a look at how Microsoft CRM, SharePoint, and Nintex together create a holistic solution that solves a number of common complex business problems. So the agenda for today, we're going to have a look at what the common problems are. We're going to do this in context of a fictitious department, OBS recruitment. Then what we're going to do is have a look at why Microsoft CRM, Nintex, and SharePoint can be used to solve some of these common complex business problems to create a single solution. We'll have a look at the various components of the solution, and then we'll spend the majority of the time inside the demo environment walking through a scenario and seeing each component of the solution and how it solves our problems. Sorry, there it is. Just quickly plugging in. And then we'll have time at the end for some Q&A. There is a chat window in your webinar. Feel free to ask questions throughout. If you're having any issues with sound, please also feel free. So let's have a look at what some of these common business problems are. And these are not necessarily specific to any industry, organization, or size of business. Today we're going to look at it through the eyes of a fictitious department called OBS Recruitment. They have some very common business problems that they needed to get solved, and had a look at various different technologies out there to solve it. So OBS Recruitment, one of the first and foremost problems that they had was there are a number of approval processes and processes that they go through as part of the recruitment lifecycle. There are a number of individuals that they need to notify through the processes and other actions that need to occur, all the way from requisitioning an open head through to identifying individuals to partake in the interview process, through to the final approval of the candidate. These can be quite complex and difficult to manage. There's also quite often a lack of visibility. Where am I in the overall process? Who is the next action currently sitting with? How long have they been required to action it, etc. This may also go across a number of different systems. It may go through our recruitment system. We may have a number of documents that need to be managed, such as the job position description, the candidates' resumes, contracts, etc. Quite often there are a number of manual processes through these different systems in order to capture and recapture information across. Quite often that results in information being keyed incorrectly, or there's a delay in information getting through to the right person. So OBS Recruitment required a solution that first and foremost allowed ease of access to information. They wanted to ensure that their team members could easily understand where any particular open job was in terms of the recruitment life cycle. They wanted to make sure that each team member only had access to the information that they needed at that point in time. And they also wanted to make sure that the team members were able to understand what their next steps were and what they needed to do. OBS Recruitment also wanted to make sure that they automated a number of the steps in the process. Quite often the steps were initiated through an email, and that was a manual email notifying someone that they needed to do something. OBS Recruitment wanted the new system to automate a lot of that, notifying and escalating wherever there was a requirement for some action. They also wanted to manage and allow for complex approval processes, and they wanted to do this through simple configuration. One of the key aspects that OBS Recruitment wanted from the new solution is they wanted to be in control of the solution. They did not want to have to go to the IT department or to developers or to specialists in order to manage business processes that they owned. They wanted to be empowered. And lastly, they wanted to allow collaboration across the team. So in the OBS recruitment's case, they wanted team members to be able to participate and collaborate on the overall recruitment lifecycle. So let's have a look at the solution that was put in for OBS recruitment and the various different components. The first component was Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Microsoft CRM managed the relational data and the information that related to the recruitment lifecycle. These included things such as the applicants, so their contact details, names, addresses, telephone numbers, but also links to their resumes. It included items such as the jobs. What are the various open jobs that are required to be filled? What are the details of those jobs? What are the interviews, etc. And how all of that information related to each other. That allowed an end-to-end lifecycle management. So OBS recruitment at any point could understand where they were in terms of the overall recruitment lifecycle. Nintex was implemented in order to manage the complex processes behind the recruitment lifecycle. Those included the various approval processes that needed to be managed. So, for example, as an open head was requested, certain approval processes and steps were required. They needed a solution to notify team members, and Nintex managed the various notification points. And they also needed the ability for team members, as well as external parties such as applicants, to capture and enter information that seamlessly then started to interact with the overall solution. And we'll see this in the demo today. And lastly, we have Microsoft SharePoint. Microsoft SharePoint managed the document creation and management. So, for example, the various documents that would go with a recruitment lifecycle, such as the job position description, the various candidates' resumes, the contracts that might get created as part of the recruitment lifecycle, and then the team collaboration. So discussions around the various lifecycles, and obviously this within a secure environment. This results in a single unified solution. So one of the key objectives from OBS recruitment was to ensure that the solution was seen as a single solution, that at no point did it feel as if individuals were going into different applications. The solution needed to look and feel as a single seamless solution and provide a complete and total 360-degree view of the business, of the recruitment lifecycle. It needed to provide unified business processes, and it needed to ensure overall automation across the entire solution. So one of the questions might be, why look at Microsoft CRM, SharePoint, and Nintex as technology to solve these business problems? And we'll look at a couple aspects of this in the next slide or two. This slide that you're seeing at the moment comes from a Microsoft white paper, and if you're interested, feel free to contact me at the end to get the link for that. Equally, if you Google Microsoft CRM and SharePoint better together, you'll find the white paper. And this discusses the various different aspects that each solution is good at and how placing these different solutions or technologies together create a seamless solution. So SharePoint is typically very good at managing unstructured or semi-structured information such as lists, documents, etc. It's an incredibly powerful social collaboration tool. It allows you to start managing informal rules and search capabilities. Microsoft CRM, or XRM as it's often termed, allows you to manage structured data. So this, for example, might be my sales information such as opportunities, customers, contacts. In the example that we're going to see today, we're going to see how it manages the recruitment lifecycle. So applicants, the jobs, job applications, interviews. It also allows you to manage the various tasks and activities that occur around a typical lifecycle and formalizes the processes. With Nintex across the top, both from a Nintex workflow perspective as well as from a Nintex form perspective, Nintex allows you to manage incredibly complex processes. Nintex forms the glue across all of the systems, allowing you to interact across various different solutions seamlessly. And it allows you to create complex approval processes. In terms of the technologies that you mentioned, these technologies allow us and are well suited for particular areas. As we've discussed, CRM is well suited for that relational data, but it also allows you to have a graphical view of your data across the top. It's an incredibly powerful reporting tool. SharePoint, well suited to document management, portals, indexing and search, and Nintex allows us to manage that complex business processes. One of the key aspects of these technologies is that they are configurable and allow business to take ownership of the overall solution. So if we have a look at some of the advantages of this technology stack, first and foremost, it allows business to take ownership of the solution. It allows them to continue to configure the solution as their needs continue to evolve. One of the things that you'll see today in the demo, very little code exists across that demo. One of the key objectives that we had in putting the presentation and the proof point together was to use as little or no code as possible. The majority of what you will see today was put together across 2 or 3 days of pure configuration. So that means that out-the-box tools were used to drag and drop both form information, workflow processes, reports, etc., to create a seamless solution that can continue to be managed by the business. What this allows us to enable is a lower time to market. Configuration tends to be a lot quicker than custom development. Obviously, lower cost of ownership. Specialized skills are not required to continue to maintain the solution. Specialist development skills aren't required. In addition, the solution comprises of out-the-box or commercial off-the-shelf applications, which there's a very healthy ecosystem. There are a number of partners that manage these applications and implement these applications, so you're not locked into a particular technology or a particular vendor. And as I said, the solution is owned by the business. So we've had a look at some of the components. What I'd like to do now is to go through the demonstration step by step and bring some of the aspects that we've spoken about on the slides to life. So we're going to jump into our solution. I'm going to quickly jump out of that. I'm just going to confirm with Amanda that the screen has changed. Yes, she's nodding. Okay, so I'm going to put on the hat this afternoon, firstly, of Mark Brown, who is one of the recruiters here at OBS, who manages and is in charge of managing the overall life cycle of recruitment at OBS. Mark, as we often all do, launches his Outlook in the morning, but in addition to looking at and going through his email, one of the first areas that Mark will go to is the recruitment dashboard. Microsoft CRM is embedded inside Outlook and allows Mark to access key information directly from within Outlook. So here we can see as Mark is logged in, he's clicked on his dashboard, and his dashboard has given him key information about the recruitment lifecycle, both visually as well as through a number of grids. So here we can see, for example, that there is a number of jobs that are open and have various different statuses. I can see that there are 50 open jobs where we're looking for staff members. There are 43 that are currently staffed, and 97 that were looking but are no longer looking. As I scroll down in my dashboard, I can see various different other key pieces of information, such as what are the open jobs broken down by job title or job type, and where are we in the open application status. So 67 jobs have been approved and have gone through our process. We have 6 jobs that are currently going through the interview process and 195 that were disqualified. Through my grids, I can also see a number of key pieces of information that help me progress a candidate and a recruitment through the recruitment lifecycle. Firstly, I can see that there are there is an open, urgent job that needs to be progressed through the lifecycle. I'm going to open this up and have a look at the information. Here I can see key pieces of information about the job. So I can see a job description, I can see a priority, that's urgent, and I can also see that my job approval status is currently in draft. In other words, an open head has not yet been approved for this particular position. What I'd like to do is initiate an approval process to allow this to go through and get approved by the various parties. Now, an approval process for a job can be quite complex. Depending on the salary range, it may need to go through a number of different approval points. It may need to get approved by the department lead, the branch lead, and even up to the MD potentially, depending on the salary range. At each point, there are various different checkpoints. In our case, the salary range is low enough that it needs to go through a single checkpoint. So I'm going to initiate the approval process. I'm going to do this by clicking on the Submit for Approval button. What that's going to do is launch a Nintex workflow form. This allows me to initiate a Nintex workflow process, which we'll see a bit later in the presentation, that steps through the approval process. So I'm going to put in a comment. I'm going to say, please approve ASAP. And we're going to say save. And that is going to initiate our approval process. What this allows us to do is to make use of the power of Nintex and the various different Nintex workflow components while using the structured data that resides inside my dynamic CRM recruitment solution. I'm going to close down this recruitment job. Now, I'm going to take my recruitment hat off and I'm going to put my manager hat on as I get the email requesting the approval of this particular job. So I'm going to jump into my inbox. I'm just going to refresh this. As we see, the email has now come through. So here I have an email that has been sent to me notifying me that because I am part of the approval process for this particular job, I need to go through and approve the job. So the first thing that I can see here is I can see that the job requires approval. I can see the job details can be viewed here. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to take me to the job record. So this is opening up the job record, which I now have access to in Dynamic CRM, where I can view key information, as I showed you before. I can also see the approval status is currently set to submitted, and my Submit for Approval button is now grayed out as we are beginning the approval process. We'll come back to my Outlook. The next thing I can do is click here to approve or reject, which we shall do shortly. One of the things that I do want to show you is just back to the dashboard, whereas Mark Brown, the recruitment specialist, can now see in my next grid, the job is now moved through to the pending headcount approval. So I'm able now again to manage my jobs as they go through, my job requests as they go through the process. Let's get back to the email. I'm going to click here to approve or reject. Having viewed the job, I'm quite happy that this is a valid request, that it is an urgent request and needs to be approved as soon as possible. So I'm going to select approve and put in my comments of approved. Approved as need is urgent. Okay. Again, in this view I can also see some job information and the URL through to open up the job inside Dynamic CRM. I'm going to say OK, which will now continue to initiate the workflow. And there I can see a number of the workflows that I've already approved. I'm going to come back to Outlook, and the last thing that I'd like to do is have a look and view the workflow status. I'm going to open that up, and what this will do is give me a graphical view of the workflow steps for the approval process for a particular job. Now we'll go through this in a little bit more detail shortly, but at a high level, what this is doing is going in, getting information from Microsoft CRM about the particular job, updating Microsoft CRM to set the approval status to be submitted, updating some further information inside our SharePoint list, going through to the manager approval, and in the manager approval step, as we'll see shortly, I can put in a number of different options in terms of how this particular item gets approved. If it's declined, it'll go down the left-hand fork, in which case the job approval status will be set to declined, and there'll be an email through to the requester notifying them this has occurred. The email will then stop. Because it was approved, we can see it's updated the status to be approved and sent a notification. And once again, the email, the workflow stopped. Let me come back in, and again, I'm just going to send and receive my email. So I can see I now have an email as Mark Brown notifying me that my job has been approved. And again, I can click on the link to open it up. We'll just do that so I can show you now how the status is now moved to approved. Because this job is now approved, I'd like to move it through to our website, where we're going to notify candidates of the job and allow them to start to interact or apply for the position. So I'm going to publish this job out to our website. I'm now going to take on the role of Ms. Sally Smith, who is browsing the OBS website, is incredibly interested in the position that you saw for the administrative assistant for the technical affairs. Reading the job description, she feels that she meets the criteria and would like to apply. What she's going to do is look through and click on the link, click here to apply. Now what this is going to do, as I click on that, it's going to open up a Nintex Live form. The Nintex form is hosted in the public cloud. In this case, it's hosted on Azure. It is an anonymous, public-facing form that allows candidates to quite easily capture information. Now, the candidates, because it is a public-facing form out on the public internet, they do not need access to the OBS infrastructure or into the OBS network. From a OBS recruitment perspective, as we'll see a bit later, this form is configured. The links back into Microsoft CRM are also configured. So we're able to very quickly create public-facing forms that allow us to capture information with context. So I can see that the job ID that it relates to, which will then be used in order to synchronize this information back into Dynamics CRM and SharePoint. It allows me to very quickly configure these forms and push them out to a public-facing website. So Sally's going to come in and capture this information. We're going to capture some key details about Sally. She might capture some information such as her telephone number, her email address. Now, the email address is important because it's through the email address that Sally will get notified from her perspective of where she is in the process. Because this information is automated, or the process is now automated, Sally will get an automated email after submitting her information, allowing her to understand where she is in the process. All right, so very quick. Sally says she's a very good fit. Now, the last thing that Sally needs to do as she fills out this form is she needs to attach her resume. Again, the form allows me to attach documents up to a total of 50 megabytes. We're going to browse. Sally's going to find her resume, attach it, and save this. This information will now pass back into Dynamics CRM using SharePoint or using the Nintex workflow engine. So while that's happening, I'm going to show you, it takes about 5 minutes. So we might have to wait a while. I've got another one waiting to go if it takes too long to get through. But what we're going to do is I'd like to show you some of the components that make up the solution and how Nintex workflow can be used to interact with Dynamics CRM in particular. So the first thing I'm going to jump out to as we wait for our application to come through, we're going to have a look at the Nintex workflow, and in particular the workflow that has just been initiated by an external party submitting a response or an application to an ad. As that information gets received back from that public-facing form, it'll kick off this workflow. The first thing the workflow is going to do is it's going to go and have a look at the internal sponsor for that particular job to notify them and let them know that this application has come through. Next, based on the email address that the candidate put into the form, it'll go and have a look and see if that candidate already exists in our system. If it does, we don't want to create a new candidate. We want to update the candidate that exists. Next, we need to get some of the job information so that we can understand what needs to be updated and who needs to get notified. Here we have a decision point where we're deciding if the candidate exists in CRM. If the answer is yes, we're going to update the Microsoft CRM information and candidate information. If, however, as in this case, the candidate does not exist in Microsoft CRM, we're going to create the record in Dynamics CRM. We're also going to create a folder within SharePoint that particular document or the resume exists. Now again, I'd like to stress this is all configuration. We're simply dragging and dropping a number of these actions onto the workflow engine, and then we're going through a number of steps to configure it. And in those steps, for example, as we create the record, I'll open that up. Now as that opens, you'll notice there are a number of key areas that we need to configure. So we need to configure the link to Microsoft CRM. Quite often we will put that in variables. And down here we'll go and link and show the various fields that are going to be updated and where they're going to be updated from. Again, all configuration. As we come back to our workflow, so we can see the job application record gets created and the resume gets created in SharePoint and linked to Dynamics CRM. The form that gets created is again managed through Nintex, and here we can see a number of the key areas that we can manage and drag and drop onto the screen. The area that I'd also like to show is the live side. So this publishes this particular form out to the public-facing website. So we can see it's published out to that particular URL. And I'm also allowed anonymous access. In other words, I don't require individuals to authenticate. However, if required, I can switch that off and require parties to authenticate either through some common authentication means such as Google, Facebook, or Windows Live. Now let's have a look and see if our applications come through. So I'm going to go through to the list. We can see it has come through. There's Sally, whose applications come through. Right. And we can see it's come through into Dynamics CRM. So let's go have a look inside my CRM application. I'm going to put the hat back on as the lead recruiter at OBS, Mark Brown, and have a look at my dashboard. So as we have a look at the dashboard and the various grids, I'm going to scroll down. One of the areas I'll see is recent job applications that have been received. So there I can see Sally's application has come through. I can double-click to open that application and see information that Sally has filled in from the web. So here I can see details about Sally. I can see the approval is pending review. We still need to go through the interview process. I can see the applicant, Sally. I'm going to double-click on Sally and see Sally's particular information as the applicant. So there I can see the information that Sally filled in. I can see the job that Sally has applied for. But importantly, I can also see, linked to SharePoint, the resume that Sally has uploaded. Now, it's important that this information is linked to SharePoint, and we'll see shortly through the interview process. Because the documents are linked and stored in SharePoint, the users that are going to interact with the resume may not be users of the recruitment solution. So they may not have access to the Microsoft CRM view of this, but they still need to interact with the resume. So here we can see there's the document that Sally uploaded. You can see that it's linked to the applicant record in CRM. But I can also open this up in SharePoint, and I can manage this through the standard SharePoint means, so I can add an conversion, etc., check in, check out. Okay. This is out-the-box integration with SharePoint and Microsoft CRM. All right, so we're going to go and have a look at the applicant. As Mark, I'm happy that the applicant meets all of the key criteria, and I'd like to initiate the interview process. The first thing I'm going to do is we move back to the job application. So I'm going to set an interview date. Because it's the end of the year, we'll begin the interview date. We'll have the interview early next year on January. We'll choose January the 8th. And again, we'll choose it to end, hopefully. Only a couple hours, not a whole day. The interview process. So now what we need to do is we're going to send a request to the interviewers. Because the interviewers are not Microsoft CRM users, I'm going to send a request again using an Nintex form. The information is passed from Microsoft CRM through to Nintex. So there we can see, for example, the interview date behind the form. We've also passed information such as the job ID. I'm going to select the interviewers. In this case, there'll only be one. I might have multiple interviewers that need to go or be part of the interview process. And I'm going to save this, which again will initiate an interview process. What will occur behind that, we close that down, is an email will be sent to the interviewer notifying them of the next steps. So again, we'll send and receive, and there we can see an interview request has come through notifying me that I need to be part of the interview process. Again, each person as they interact with this process is being notified, and as Mark Brown and the various key stakeholders, I can see at any point where this is in the interview process. As an interviewer, I can see some key information. I can see who I am interviewing when. I can see the applicant's resume. Now again, because I am not a CRM user, but I do have access to SharePoint, I can click on that link and I can see the resume. Now again, that might be secured down just for the interviews. In this case, it is open. Coming back to my email, I can also see that immediately after the interview, I'm required to submit my notes on the outcome. I'm also required to submit my my recommendation moving forward. So we'll jump through to January the 8th and have the interview with Sally. I'm going to click at the end of that interview to view the interview notes and fill in some key information. So we were very impressed with Sally, and we believe we should proceed. So I also have the interview preferences. So in this case, I'm going to suggest hire. Okay. Again, this form is aware of the job that this relates to. It's aware who I am as the interviewer, and that information will now be passed back to Dynamics CRM as we initiate another workflow. So I'm going to click Save, and this will now proceed and progress. As we come back to our job application, as Mark Brown, I am able to see where I am in the overall interview process. I'll refresh my grid inside the job application, and I can see the interviews have taken place. Here I can see the interview notes, and I can see the interview preference. And if there were more than one interview that occurred, they'll all be viewed in this particular grid. So again, as OBS recruitment, I'm able to see at any point where I am in the process. To finish off the scenario, based on the feedback, we're going to approve the candidate, click Save and Close, and now we will initiate the onboarding, which again would be a combination of Nintex workflow, CRM, and SharePoint as we manage the various different aspects now of an onboarding as opposed to the recruiting side. I'm going to minimize that and just jump back to my PowerPoint deck so we finish up. So in terms of the overall solution benefits, as you've hopefully seen, this provides a seamless solution and a familiar solution. It utilizes Microsoft Office and the various components that users are familiar with. It also allows us to not only interact with internal audiences, but also interact with an external audience and automate that interaction. It allows me to manage and automate the end-to-end lifecycle and continues to provide a platform that provides maximum flexibility. So as OBS recruitment, as my needs change, so I am able to continue to configure rather than develop to my needs. And it allows me to very quickly and very rapidly push those out. It allows me to have a single view of the recruitment process and a single view of the truth, or source of the truth rather, surrounding that process. So at any point, I am continuously updated on the key information that's relevant to me. Across the top of this group, I have a security layer that ensures that information is only presented to those individuals that require it at a point in time, and allow them to interact with that content and that information. And as OBS recruitment, probably the key point to the solution is it allows me to maximize out-the-box functionality, lowering my cost of ownership, and ensuring that solutions can be very rapidly deployed and managed. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone. We're going to wrap up a little early today. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now, and I will attempt to answer them as best I can. You can also see my contact details, so feel free to reach me via email. I do have a couple of early questions. So one of the questions is, when using lazy approvals, does the approver require a SharePoint cal? That's a very good question. I believe they do, but I would need to get back to you on that. I'm not 100% sure of the licensing implications of lazy approvals. So I will get back to you and let you know if that is the case. The next question, can you show us how you got CRM to start a Nintex workflow from CRM? So absolutely. The way that is initiated is through Nintex forms. Now, there are a number of ways technically to solve this. You can use code to push information from Microsoft CRM to SharePoint, create a SharePoint list. Ideally, you'd want to keep that list to the absolute minimum information so that you're not doubling or duplicating information. That creation of that list item will then initiate the workflow. In my case, I did not want to use any code. So what I've done is, you'll see that in the cases where I wanted to initiate a workflow, I have used a Nintex form that was launched from within CRM that pulled information, or information was passed from Dynamics CRM through a URL to the Nintex form. That form was further completed with information that was relevant to the workflow rather than Microsoft CRM in particular. Click Save, and that then initiated the workflow. I have another question. This question refers to getting approval for a document sent as an email attachment to an external person. And this is specifically back to the lazy approvals. So, for example, using Nintex workflow to get the approval back from someone who is out of the organization. Again, that would relate, as pointed out, to the SharePoint licensing. There are licensing implications in using that, but I will certainly, I've got your details, so I'll get back to you and let you know whether that is the case. So another question, are there any of the out-of-the-box workflows for certain industries, for example, insurance? There are a number of workflows that come with Nintex that are cross-industry. So, for example, the leave approval is a common workflow requirement. There are a number of templates. I'm sure if there are some specific ones for industries. I believe there might be, but again, I'd need to get back to you on the specifics of what those workflows might comprise of. So we have another question. What workflow does Nintex provide that CRM does not already? So that's a very good question. Microsoft CRM contains a workflow engine that allows me to interact with information that's stored inside Microsoft CRM. Nintex is very useful where that information extends outside of Microsoft CRM. So in this case, in our scenario, where we had an external party interacting with the workflow through our Nintex Live form, we also had a number of individuals who were outside of Microsoft CRM in the interview process that needed to interact with CRM and be part of that process. Where we have those types of scenarios, also where we have complex approval scenarios, Nintex is an excellent choice to put on top of Microsoft CRM. It allows us to extend Microsoft CRM workflow functionality through configuration rather than through development to allow us to manage some of these more complex scenarios where we need to have complex approval processes or we're interacting with a number of different parties internally and externally. The next question, can you provide the link that you mentioned at the beginning? Absolutely. So I will send out a link to the participants of the SharePoint white paper. I believe, Steve, that's what you are referring to. So the SharePoint and Microsoft CRM white paper discusses how you can use Microsoft CRM and SharePoint together to provide an overarching solution. So I'll certainly send that out to all participants. All right. There doesn't seem to be any further questions. Feel free, as I said, my contact details are on the screen. Feel free to contact me directly if you have any further questions, or if you'd like to see any further details. This presentation and specifically the demonstration that you see, we're able to present in more detail if you'd like. So if you'd like to see further information and drill in a little bit deeper to how we created this the solution and the scenario, please reach out and we'll absolutely love to come and visit you and show you some of the details behind it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you for taking time out in what I know is a very busy week. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and an excellent break, and I'm sure I'll speak to many of you in the new year.